Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. In today's episode of Friday Morning Ramblings, I think we'll just walk through the garden, go plant to plant, see what's ready to harvest. This is probably the best time, I think, or one of the best times in the garden, because so many different plants are producing, so things are ready to be picked. It's about 9 a.m. I like to go through in the morning, pick out what I'm going to use that day. I do recommend, I don't know what today's date is, somewhere around June 26th maybe. These are seed starts that were started on June 14th. So these are all my backup plants. When we get into the garden, you'll see that they're doing pretty good, but it's still a good idea to have backup plants ready in case you have problems, diseases, insects, all that kind of stuff I talked about before. This is all different kinds of basil. I'll be doing a video on that. But if this is something you'd like to do, I sell these at my seed shop, and I like the greater quantity of soil in here because in the summer heat, when you have these outside, they can dry out really quickly. So bigger containers, if you don't want to pick up something, yoga containers with holes punched in them are great for transplants. All right, let's get out into the garden. So with about 5 days left in June, I'm trying to get everything pulled out that needs to be pulled out, everything tended that needs to be tended by July 1st when I give them my big July feeding. Have a deer coming in, it's chewing off the tops of my tomato plants, so the tomato hedge is slowing down a little bit. I'll show you examples of deer damage. It's pretty easy to figure out. Potatoes are starting to fall over, they're getting big, but they're pretty much finishing out. So I have different varieties, like the variety right in the middle there. You might think, oh my God, it has a disease. Well, the rest of the plants around it, the varieties don't have it. And this is just an earlier maturing variety. So that's just natural die-off. That's what your potatoes are going to look like when they're just about ready to be harvested. I like it to die back, let it sit there a week or so after it's died back, and then I harvest the potatoes. Sweet potatoes are starting to do their thing, really starting to climb up the trellis. I think that'll be really cool. And then the pepper plants that I just tucked in, all the peppers throughout the garden are starting to produce like that. So another week or so, I'm going to have tons of peppers, which is perfect. Here's where the deer's coming. Slowly it's getting more confident. It's eating down or chewed down the sunflower that was right there. These were going to be my single stem heirloom tomatoes, but they keep getting chewed down. So that means I have to come up with another plan, because actually I think 4 out of 5 of those plants have had the tip chewed off. That's fine. New shoots will come up from the side like that one's doing down there. You see a new one coming up. I'm gonna have to retrain and reprune. Onions, a bit of a fail this year. I mean, they're forming, but I'm just gonna take them out of this spot. They don't seem to do well in this soil mix that I made, so I'm gonna put them somewhere else. Leeks look great. They'll be ready in about 4 or 5 weeks. All right, let's walk into the garden. Before we go into the garden, just want to show you another project I'm working on. So I do a lot of different things around here on my 2 acres. You know, I call it my homestead. Some people say it's not big enough. Maybe it's my micro homestead. Whatever it is, I enjoy it. It's my property. And the whole goal of homesteading, in my opinion, is to be able to become more self-sufficient, live off the land that you have, and just take care of yourself in a different way. Anyway, this space, the driveway wasn't a straight line here. So there was like 8 inches of earth there, then 10 inches of earth, and it was this wavy line of dirt, and the dirt was all kicking up on the fence. So I built these 13-inch coming out this way flower boxes, or really frame beds, to go down this space. It's pressure treated wood. It's a stain, so it's stained black. I think it'll look nice. This will all get filled in, and I'll be putting in, you know, all the flowers that I have over there in my truck in there. Some of the stuff I've been growing. Over here, the soil came out more, so this is 19 inches out. I'm going to show you those raspberries in a second for a tip. And these are all plants that I grew indoors, and they've just been sitting around. So I'll be planting up this whole area. I'll show you that in the next Friday morning ramblings if I remember. A lot of my raspberries are ready now. I have black raspberries, red raspberries. They're kind of fragile, so if you're not eating them right off the cane, which I do recommend, I know I don't put anything on there, but my wife likes to wash these in case there's any insects. You want to wash them in a colander, just like that, rinse the water through, and then set them in a bowl and let them sit there for about an hour. You want all that excess water to drain out. This way they'll last a little bit longer if you don't eat them in that single day, but they're not going to be soggy if you do this, because the water just gets into all the cracks and crevices. Just a little tip. make your raspberries last a little bit longer. All right, let's get into the garden now. And I don't know about the rest of you, but come middle of July, I kind of get whipped from the garden. Lose my energy a little bit. Sometimes I can let things kind of get out of hand. I'm trying not to do that this year, trying to pace myself differently. So by the end of June, I want to just basically pull out everything that needs to be pulled out. And I want to open up the space. I've pulled out all the peas that were growing on here, just opening up the space, not rushing to plant anything in there. Same thing over there, pulled out all the, I think that was arugula in there. Found some radishes that still were doing well because they were shaded off by the peas. However, with the heat, they're just too spicy. They're not enjoyable. I like the cool weather radishes, crisp, sweet, delicious. Beautiful sunflower. Tomatoes are doing well. You know, I've showed you in here before. Everything in here is ready to come out. So, you know, we'll have some roasted turnips probably on the grill. Well, let me just take out 2 for today. That one's in there. It's breaking off all the leaves. Turnips look good, so there'll be 2 turnips. The carrots, let's see. These are short carrots, so these are good. Carrots are probably ready to come out. Get a couple of those. I have beets in other places. That right in there is celery, but I'm going to show you. I've been working on growing celery. All the peas that were in here are gone too. I've been working on growing celery, and celery is actually an herb, by the way, but we use it as an herb and a vegetable. The leaves are delicious. Should I say it? These are root pouches that I sell at my seed shop. The 100-gallon pots, root pouches are doing really well. Things are looking good. We'll get into the cucumbers. I wanted to show you the celery first. You've seen this a lot, but I haven't talked too much about it. This is all celery. And look how beautiful that is. Celery takes a long time to mature. A good, look at that one. A good 90 days. I always say I plant stuff 4 inches apart. That's one whole hand planted apart, all different ways. Lots of granular fertilizer to set it up. Tons of water. The fail, I think, for most people with celery is water. It's getting full sun, likes full sun. Started this in April, May. It's going on to its 90th day from transplant. I'll have to look it up, but celery might take 90 to 120 days to mature. Carrots, these were the carrot flowers. I had to tie them up because they just leaned over and took up the whole space, but I'm going to keep the flowers on there. And you can see, there's the carrot that I could have pulled, but it just sends up all that greenery, and it's bringing in good and bad insects, but mostly the good pollinators. And a lot of people ask me, why do I start the garden tour from this side? Well, I usually do it in the morning. The sun's over there. If I came from that side, we'd see my shadow everywhere. Potatoes in there, and like I said, the peppers are starting to show everywhere. These plants were smaller and weaker, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been feeding them the fish emulsion, talked about that in a recent video. I just leave the peppers on now. I used to recommend taking them off. I mean, if the plants are really beat up and really tiny and had peppers, remove them. But once they're this size, fish emulsion, water-soluble fertilizer, you know, let the peppers grow, harvest them, they'll be good. Let's spin around. This way you'll see my shadow pop in. These are bush variety cucumbers, and what I do, and you can see, almost ready to harvest. So I look at the leaf. That leaf doesn't look so bad, but I just pinch it off right from here and drop it on the ground, and I try and prune out the bottom, more so like right in there with the straight eights. Just let some air flow in. As we're going around, we may find some insects and stuff like that. I know I saw the cucumber beetle in here earlier. They're going to be around. Insect dust. When I say insect dust, people have been asking. It's not diatomaceous earth or DE. It's insect dust. It's poison. It could be Captain Jack's organic. It could be 7 dust. Anyway, that will kill off the cucumber beetle. Outer leaves, away from the flowers. But just look at all these cucumbers in there. I got to get in there and thin all that out. They're growing really, really well. I'm moving the straight 8s out to the fence and going to create, you know, a whole wall of cucumber plants, hopefully down the line. And the tomato plants, these are indeterminates, looking good in 100-gallon root pouches. Let's make our way over here. So I'm doing some major construction over here. That's the experimental tomatoes. That is just wood chips or wood pellets for burning. Once you add water, they turn into sawdust. Struggling because there's no fertilizer in there except for what I'm giving them. That's the star of a recent video. Great looking pepper, growing well. Anyway, got my butternut squash over there, 2 plants, acorn squash here, 2 plants, and they're doing really well. You can see some yellowing down in there. That's not something to start worrying about. I'm just going to remove those leaves. Got to get this trellised up, and that's part of what I'm talking about, is getting out here over the next 5 days, and maybe by the next Friday morning ramblings I'll have this garden in the place that I wanted. It's pretty close. I mean, always give yourself credit for where you're at, but there are things that I want to get done, because with some rain over the next 7 to 10 days, everything's going to just keep taking off. So I don't know if you remember, but this was all asparagus, you know, 6-7 feet tall, looked just like that, coming all the way down this way right into here. And I decided, how the heck did 2 people eat all that asparagus? So I dug this out, gave the crowns away, and I'm gonna clean out this bed, maybe drop beds this way. I think you'll see it in the next video. And this is just gonna be a whole new open space, tons of production for this. I'm gonna build a couple of these for winter squashes, plenty of sunlight, and I'm gonna change up what I was growing. Don't be afraid to just say, hey, I'm tired of this, or what was I thinking, or, you know, this made no sense, or I liked it but I want to do something different. Rip it out, change it over. I think this is going to be a beautiful space. Probably will do a video on the build, but we'll see. Sometimes when I'm trying to do videos all the time, I get nothing done because I'm making videos, so maybe this week it'll be a little bit quieter. Pole beans doing really well. This damage right here, that's the Japanese beetle. I don't see any of them, but tonight, well, not tonight, I won't have it done, but over the next couple of days when this is all tended and taken care of, I'll drop the dust down in the evening, wipe out some of the cucumber beetles, the Japanese beetles. And this is all I do, is I come out here, whatever bean is growing, tuck it through, and I help them trellis right up here. These are asparagus beans. These are gifted to me. They're doing really well. Some more cucumber plants. This is probably a good example of how I'm clearing out the bottom, and I would just take a look at this. That leaf looks beat up, and I know we'll find it. Well, we'll find a cucumber beetle anyway. So I just pinch this off. Now, when I'm pinching leaves off, once that cucumber smell gets into the air from the damaged leaf, there's a great looking cucumber, that can attract insects. So this might be the day that I go and I prune out the leaves, but I also hit it with the peppermint oil spray to mask that scent. But also the peppermint oil spray is an irritant, so it helps keep away beetles. Definitely works on spider mites for my cucumbers and for my beans over there. So when you start seeing your beans yellow and get spotty on the bottom, that's usually spider mites working their way up. Tomatoes are looking good in here. I just kind of weave them through as things are going on. Here are the beets. This is also on the dinner menu. Gotta like that. And we'll take out this one. So 2 beets, go with the turnips, probably grill them in some capacity. That's a weed. So my beets, I can't really eat the leaves come the summer. I don't like the way they taste that much anyway, but they get a disease on them. Doesn't affect the growth of the beets, but you know, it's something that I deal with in my zone. Let's take a look at this group of carrots. They're looking pretty good too. More turnips in there. Another grouping of cucumbers. These are straight 8s. Now, it's hard to tell on the camera sometimes. These look a little bit pale in comparison to the rest, so I'll be giving that some fish emulsion. Cucumbers, both sides, doing pretty good. I'm just looking for that cucumber beetle. That's insect damage too. Could have been Japanese beetles. But when you're looking for disease, you don't worry so much what's on the bottom. You kind of look at the whole plant, and if everything looks green and growing pretty well, that's great. So these are going to get to size of and produce. Like there's a well, there's a nice one. Two of them, three of them. Two right there, one right there. So I'm going to get, there's three more. There's another one, that's 7. See, another one, 8. So my point being is you get your first wave of cucumbers in, which I'm now calling first planting, second planting, and third plantings of summer crops. I'm going to be talking about that now over the years to help people out. So these will continue to grow. Even if the disease comes now or insects come now, these will continue to grow. I'll get a nice harvest out of them. I have those backups going. If I can't maintain this plant, I'll yank it. I'll put in the transplants and I'll just start again. When you're putting in seeds or transplants into a summer garden, they germinate much more quickly, they grow much more quickly because the soil temperatures are right and the heat. They accelerate their growth beyond what a standard seed pack would tell you. Here's one of my zucchini plants. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They all look pollinated. If they were getting a brown tip, they would get it by now. So I'll have some zucchini I can harvest too. Just one plant. It's a lot easier to get in here and manage one plant than it is to manage, you know, 2 or 3 plants tucked into here. And the production is good. You always have to be saying to yourself, and in my case, how many zucchinis can my wife and I eat in one sitting? This is the point. Oh, here we go. So right here, right above my thumb, those are squash bug eggs. So they need to be torn off. You can tear them off, you can remove the leaf. When I'm watering my squash plant, if I soak in a spray right down at the base, any squash bugs tend to crawl up. I don't like using this shredded or this wood chip mulch in here because they tend to hide in it. So I use grass or I use shredded hardwood. And you can see, probably not, they're too small, but crawling back there, a bunch of ants. Don't worry about ants crawling on your zucchini plants, that's fine. But if you soak down the base of the plant, the squash bugs will crawl up and you can just grab them and dispose of them. 2 more, and you can see how big they get. Zucchini. This one's a little bit slow. It has some of the dust down at the base for the vine borer. There's a zucchini in there. They have to come out. But this plant is getting massive. And this was one of the plants that was producing more male flowers than female flowers. For whatever reason, this plant over here worked it out. Plenty of pollination. The plant to my left that I just showed you took a while to get going. Same with this one. But look at all the squash. The one under that, it's brown, wasn't pollinated properly. And the straight neck yellow squash tends to trail. There's another one right down in there, and you can see that it's trailing out this way. You could grow that, you know, up a trellis or something, but keep in mind, one plant taking over a 4x8 raised bed. It's better to tend and care for 1 or 2 plants really well, space out a couple of plants through your garden, than to plant so many that you can't manage them, and that's when the diseases and problems usually come in. These are my tournament tomatoes, about ready for the video. Going to be pruning these. I'm just waiting for some tomatoes to form. These are late getting in. So the flowers are there, but the tomatoes aren't there yet for the video. All these peas are coming out over the next couple of days. I will just clean out this whole section. I had garlic growing in there, the weeds took over. Everything, this space will be cleared out, and I think it'll look really cool if I grow some giant sunflowers right in here. So I'm already thinking about the new plans and what I want to do. Got rid of all the coreopsis that used to be in there. It just didn't make sense. I want air circulation through here. More room for later. Oh, that's nice. So look at all those apples falling. And that's probably just because maybe the cicadas, which you don't hear right now, they're finally gone, damaged some of the plants, so they're dropping fruit to protect themselves. Anyway, they're going to go into my worm composter, and maybe that was too many anyway. I just want to get some apples this year that are nice, delicious, and I can't believe the cicadas just wrecked most of my fruit crops. Corn looks beautiful. I think there's only 61 ears in there this time because they all didn't come up. And the squirrel population is down. Don't know if I'm going to roll the dice and let them go, or I'm going to cage it in. I really don't feel like building another project in the garden. I'd rather focus on tending and stuff like that. Heirloom hedge looking good. Tomatoes in here looking good. Some of the lemon boys are ready, or close to being ready. But just, you know, tomatoes are everywhere. Everything looks pretty good. Cherry tomato hedge, which I've been talking about, you know, just about every video, looking good. I mean, the tomatoes are just going to be rolling in. Here are some down here, actually. That's the Juliet. Good enough to eat. But they're just, you know, not quite cherry, a little bit bigger, but they're just delicious. Produces really well. I do recommend the Juliet tomato. Peppers, all starting to come on. You can see some right down there. Now these are nice and green, nice and tall. This is where I stop giving my pepper plants, because they're healthy, nitrogen. I'm not going to give them anymore. Might give them some, I think it's called More Bloom, a 0-10-10 NP and K, just to help with fruit production and flowering. I'm not convinced that a ton more phosphorus or potassium necessarily helps with blooms and production versus, you know, some basic compost. I put down alfalfa pellets, wood ash, granular fertilizer. I think I'm covering the bases of NP and K pretty well, that I'm not going to see a huge difference by using the 0-10-10 fertilizers. Maybe, we'll see. This is the Rapunzel, which I think is cool. Can't wait to just cut this off and have cherry tomatoes all along there. We can spin around over to here, and you can see the plants are starting to get out of control. I got to make decisions on what I'm going to prune, but I mean, out of control in a good way. It's loaded. You know, with tomatoes starting to show up in here. I just did a whole video on the dwarf and micro tomatoes. How to come in here and just cut everything down with hedge cutters, shears, whatever. Same thing with the fig tree, because it was just getting all overgrown. You want to have that air circulation going. Blackberries, these might be worth picking right now. Now they're a little bit firm. They should just pull. Well, I pulled this one off. This one I had to tug. They should just pop right off nice and easy. That's when you know that they're ready. And they still taste a little bit tart. Well, here's one, for example. That one might be ready. If you just grab it, nope. So the bottom broke off. So they're going to just pull off real nice and easy. That's when you know they're ready. Birds aren't getting them, that's great. That one was nice and sweet. But really, probably 3 days, I'll have tons of blackberries. And I do, again, recommend, don't know the name of this variety, not so worried about that. What I'm more concerned about is that it doesn't send roots out everywhere. You want the clumping or erect variety of blackberries because they tend to stay right in their own space. We'll, cicada damage. We'll work our way over this way. This place isn't really a mess, but I need to get it under control. And I don't know. Lots of dieback on great blueberry plants that had tons of blueberries from the cicadas. I just don't feel like going through that, to be honest, but I will have to. Containers look great. I do sell the vertical towers, or I'm affiliated with Greenstalk Garden. Vertical towers do really, really well. Here's a cool one. Here's some dessert, or breakfast I should say. Still producing. Tower peppers are doing really well. We'll be having some peppers tonight. This is all sweet peppers in here. There's got to be more. Yeah. So everything's rolling in. It's just been really a watering issue now. Look at the banana peppers do really well in these containers, by the way. It's just going to be a watering issue now, trying to get, trying to keep the moisture in the garden is what I'm trying to say. I've talked about it before. Here's a plant, I just watered it this morning. That's what I've been doing. See how the leaves are yellowing on the bottom of the tomato plant? That's not a disease, that's nothing to worry about. It was really dry. When your plants run out of water, they stop taking care of whatever's on the bottom so that they can send those nutrients, that moisture, up to the top to the growing tips. So keep the moisture going and your plant should stay nice and green. And that's a great sign that, hey, I wasn't really watering it that well. I mean, even with the damage, I have tons of blueberries which are ready to pick. Now we've been picking some of them. And then this is probably the most neglected area of my garden, which is okay. Coming around this way, potatoes need to be watered. They're naturally dying back. I did the video on these and actually pulled some out. I don't know if I can feel any on top here. Let's see real quick. No, I think I got the big ones. That one's small. But they'll be ready to harvest soon. In here, I just want to show you, I had the struggling ghost peppers, habaneros, scorpion peppers, fish emulsion. The eggplant that was struggling, starting to come back. Seeing some holes in here. There's one, that's a flea beetle. These will have to get dusted. So it's just an ongoing, really, process of tending, feeding, watering, caring for diseases. And I really do recommend getting a journal and keeping track of when and what comes through your garden, what you try, because unless you have a great memory, I sure don't. I'll forget next year, and sometimes if I don't write things down, I have found that I planted stuff right there for tomatoes, and then a week later I planted the same variety right down over there, only because I'm going off my memory, and I'm not losing it or anything. It's just, you just can't remember. So I do recommend the journal. Let's just take a walk back over. July is the time I think we might start getting a little bit tired. Hopefully your gardens are producing. See if you can reach in, pull out that second wave of energy, and don't feel like, I'm going to keep saying this for July, don't feel like you have to save struggling plants once you've really done your best to take care of them. Get those backup plants going. Even if you don't want to do the transplants, the backup plants that I showed you in the beginning. If the squash and zucchini here died out and I pulled them out, say the vine borer got them, you know, fix up the soil, a couple handfuls of granular fertilizer, mix it in, drop new seeds. The squash and zucchini, once they germinate or you put in a transplant, they can be ready with the summer heat. 35, 45 days you'll be getting more zucchini. So you can do the first planting of summer crops, the second planting of summer crops, and in some cases a third planting. If you have 90 days, like starting today going forward, you can grow just about anything, including indeterminate tomatoes. These are my tomatillos. That's 2 plants in there, and they get really big too. So they have to be tended to, tied up in some crazy way. You can remove stuff from the bottom, but they grow in a husk just like that. And when the tomatillo gets big enough, it'll push out to that papery skin. The skin turns brown, like a light brown paper bag color, and that's when you know you can harvest it. These also get flea beetles too. All those holes, flea beetle holes, they do need to get dusted. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Reach in deeply, get that second wind for the push through the rest of the season. And like I just said 1 minute ago, have some backups ready. Pull out the plants, love your garden. Don't fall in love with a specific plant. Love the garden. Thanks for watching, and please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com.